Hey, good morning, everyone. This is my first video for Year 13 students to make sure that you guys are keeping up with good revision and just some additional tips for how you can structure your work whilst you're away from school. One of the things I wanted to recommend to you today is a documentary that I was going to show you in one of our lessons in class. I'll show you where you can find it. On YouTube, just type in David Lloyd George. It's the third one down. It's called Dan Snow on Lloyd George, full documentary. Dan Snow's documentaries, if you haven't seen any of them before, he's really good value. He's an engaging historian, but also the character and the person of David Lloyd George. Understanding him is going to help you understand the poetry anthology. It's going to help you understand First Casualty a bit better, as well as Journey's End in its own way too. So watch that documentary, get a couple of notes down from it, and use that as the first part of your week's work for Year 13, Paper 2, the War Paper. Something else I would point you to as well, if you get the time and if you want to stretch yourself, challenge yourself, thinking about the First Casualty in particular, there's two articles I would link you to on JSTOR. So JSTOR is like an academic journal. It's where you can pick up different ideas, suggestions, but it's primarily used for, let's say, kind of university and college level study. That said, it's still super useful. The username and password that's on the screen at the moment, so username JCS09. Let's highlight it quickly. Hopefully you can see that. It's a rubbish color to choose, but take a look at it anyway. There you go, that red one, it's a bit nicer. Look at that, cool. But if you take those login details, go to JSTOR. I'll show you where you find that. So JSTOR is easy to find. First result that should come up. Go to, move my little box out of the way, login, just here, can you see? So login, I've already got login details saved here. Once you have logged into it, there are two articles I recommend. So one of those articles is called Paul Fussell, Years Since the Great War and Years After It. So it's like modern memory. Paul Fussell's The Great War and Modern Memory. It's a review of a book that this historian and social commentator Paul Fussell wrote. He's seen as like one of the best voices of the First World War in terms of kind of communicating it to a modern audience. He was writing in kind of like the 60s, 70s. And then this 25 years later account is a review and sort of revisits some of the different claims and ideas that he put forward in his original writing. So Paul Fussell is writing, putting together sort of some of his ideas around the same time that Brian Gardner was putting together the anthology, the Upline to Death anthology. So it's really worth checking him out. And again, that's one you can just search on JSTOR once you logged into it. So it's Paul Fussell, Great War. If you just search Paul Fussell, it should come up. I'll show you, for example. There you go. It's like second result. So check that one out. Once you've logged in, you should be able to download the PDF. After you've done that, the other article I would point you to that's really worth looking at is called Under the Magnifying Glass, Investigating the First World War in Recent Crime Novels by Ben Elton and Jen Ike and Horst Brzezicki. That is, again, it's a review of texts that are similar to the First Casualty and the First Casualty itself. It's worth reading that just for an additional kind of critical perspective, but also just so you can kind of take yourself out of your own subjective reading of it. The writer of this particular article has a different perspective than you do, so it's always worth taking in another person's account of something. With this article, use it to inform the next essay that I'm going to ask you to write, and that essay will be looking at actually how Elton's work, let's type it up as I go. So how does Elton's I purposely kept that quite open. I want you to be able to consider any of the other First World War literature that you've read. So that can be some of the unseen stuff that we've looked at. It can be based on one of the articles I just recommended. There are other books that are suggested and talked about in those JSTOR articles. You might also want to think about something like Regeneration, Strange Meeting, Testament of Youth, all of these accounts of the First World War will differ in some ways, and I want you to see if you can engage with that in a more critical essay, as well as providing good revision. Thinking about David Lloyd George and jumping back a little bit, the idea of how politics is presented, that was one of the questions we considered in our last lesson together. So I want you to think about how that might feed into how Elton's work is presented differently, or whether he's got that different angle than other writers. If you think about Regeneration, if you think about Testament of Youth, or any of the other texts, like I said, that you may have read, think about, is politics much of a role in that, or is it just kind of like a peripheral thing which nobody really pays much attention to? Is it something that we as a modern audience are actually more concerned with, or is it just one or two individuals like Sassoon, for example, who are more politically active? Actually, did politics really play a big part, in contrast to, say, ideas of community and camaraderie? So that's the kind of thing I want you to think about when you're tackling this essay subject. So how does Elton's work compare to other presentations of the First World War? And think at least 2 or 3 poems or pieces of unseen work, just for the challenge of coming up with a nice essay. Once you've completed it, and if you're also working on the other Elton essay that I set last lesson, I'd love that to be sent over to me. I can get it marked, get you some feedback, and hopefully continue with some great revision. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope you guys are keeping well. Hope to catch up soon. Would love to hear from you. Kind regards, Mr. B.